All right, hello and welcome to your final video for this week. Really all we're doing is combining everything from both days. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. The first thing, we have y equals 2 times 1/6 to the power of x minus 2 and then minus 3. So first we have to figure out what our a value and our b value is. Remember, technically this equation is going to be like, let's use black for this. Y equals a times b to the power of x plus h plus k. So if I'm looking for my a value, those are the first two numbers, so it is going to be 2. My b value is that thing in parentheses, so it's going to be 1/6. And then while we're at it, let's talk about h and k. So h is right here, oops, and right here. Remember, for your h value, you want to flip the sign. So technically it says -2, but my h value is really going to be +2. You can put a plus sign just to be sure if you want. You don't have to. And then my k value is whatever's on the end. Again, for that one, you don't have to flip the sign. So k is out here, k is right here. My k value is going to be -3. Now let's look at what we know based on that information. Let's start with our growth or decay. Remember, your growth or decay depends on your b value. My b value is 1/6, so it's smaller than 1 and it's between 0 and 1. Remember, that means it's going to be a decay function. Decay. If it was just 6 or if it was something bigger than 1, then it would be a growth function. Since we've already looked at our h and our k values, let's talk about those. Since h is positive, remember that moves it right or left. So this one's right or left. And if whatever you write down for your h value is a positive, then it's going to move it in the positive direction, which is going to be this way, which is in fact right. K moves it up or down. We have a negative k value, so if I want to go from 0 up or down, down is going to be negative. So this one will be down. I'm just going to erase my extra lines here. All right, so let's look at the information we have left to find. So we still need to find our asymptote. Notice your asymptote is going to be that line that your graph gets closer and closer and closer to. Now we said in the first day's notes that's the same as plus k. So it's going to be y equals, and then whatever your k value was, so -3. And if I notice, let's actually do that in yellow so it goes together. Y equals -3. And if I notice my graph, if I go down 1, 2, 3, and I draw my little dotted line in, notice it looks like your graph gets close to that line and it never stops. Technically, it gets closer and closer and closer and never actually meets that line, but because we're looking at this graph, that'll be your asymptote. Also, I'm sorry, I wrote this as your y-intercept. It's your asymptote. I just wrote it in the wrong spot. So it should be y equals -3. The next thing we can find is your y-intercept. Remember, to find that, you can either figure out where does it cross the y-axis. So where does it cross this line here? I can't see that from my graph. So what I have to do is I have to plug in 0 for x. So I'm going to take my equation. Let's see. So we're trying to find our y-intercept. We're going to have y equals 2 times 1/6 to the power of 0 minus 2 minus 3. If I simplify, we have 2 times 1/6. 0 minus 2 gives me a -2, and then minus 3. I'm going to do this step by step because I want to make sure that I get the right answer. So we're going to do 1/6 to the power of -2. And I'm going to type that into my calculator. Please make sure that you include the parentheses around your 1/6 just so you don't have any sort of issues in terms of getting the right answer. So I'm going to do 1/6 in parentheses and then raised to the power of -2. And that gives me 36. So really I have 2 times 36 minus 3. 2 times 36 gives me 72. So I have 72 minus 3. And if I subtract 3 from 72, I get 69. So that's going to be my y-intercept. If I want to write it, I know my x value is going to be 0. My y value is going to be 69. And so that is my y-intercept. I'm going to get rid of the box because it looks kind of messy. All right, the next thing we need to figure out is our domain and range. I'm going to do that in red. We already talked about domain, and remember, every exponential function has the same domain. It includes all of your x values. So your domain is going to go from negative infinity to infinity. Really what you need to figure out is your range. So if I look at this, remember your range is your y's. I'm looking for my smallest y value. Remember your y's get closer and closer and closer to that yellow line. So my smallest y value is going to be negative 3. And then my y's, this line goes up forever. So they keep going up and up and up forever and ever and ever. They're going to get bigger and bigger. They never stop. This should actually have a bracket. So that means that my y's are going to go to infinity. Again, your asymptote will show up like 3 times. Notice on my problem, I have my asymptote here, y equals negative 3. It's also my k value, and it's also in my range. So your asymptote should show up throughout. All right, the last thing we need to talk about is your end behavior. Remember, you're telling me what happens as x increases, as x decreases. Remember, if you want to write x is increasing on this end, x is decreasing over here. Let's look at as x increases, we'll use the blue. So as x increases, it's going to be on this side of my graph over here. As my x's get bigger, my y's get smaller and smaller and smaller. They get closer and closer and closer to my asymptote. So as x increases, my y's, oops, that's a highlighter. So y decreases to negative 3. Then we want to see what happens as my x's are getting smaller. Technically, my x's are getting smaller on this side, but if you travel backwards on your graph, and notice we have right here, my x value is 10, it's down here, 5, my y's are down here. My y's, they get smaller they get bigger and bigger. So down here we had y was negative 3, we had negative 3, we went up to 0, we went up to 5, we went up to 10. So as x decreases, my y's are increasing. So as x decreases, y increases. All right. Notice when I did this, your asymptote actually showed up one more spot. It should be a part of your end behavior too. So really that asymptote gives you a ton of information. Again, you just find it from that k value at the end of your equation. All right, that is your video about all of the things for your translations. I know it was a little chaotic, so if you have questions, if you need help, if you want to go through another example, please don't hesitate to reach out to your teacher. Thank you for watching, and thank you for all of your hard work this week.